Hi, Sandy here. I finished another glue book. It's been like 10 days ago, and I've had it just sitting here on my desk. And I guess I've been kind of busy. We had a really nice weekend last weekend, and I helped my husband, well, my family. We did some yard work at my mother-in-law's, and then at our house, and now today, a week later, we got snow. It's almost melted already, though. But anyway, so I've filled up 4 of these vintage style scrapbooks that I find at thrift stores, and they're like, most of them have black pages. The old-fashioned kind that you would put the little square corners on, you know. This was my last one I did before the current one. This was my take 5. I had so much landscapes, cars, people, birds, flowers. I took one of each or more and put it on each and every page. There's the birds, car, landscape, people, and flowers. And I did a flip through of that recently. I've done 3 of these now. I call them Victorian Treasure. And they're Victorian. This was my first one I did. Plus, not only did I have these 4 done, I've done 21 of these now. These I make loose leaf pages, 8.5 by 11 pages. We'll cover them on both sides, and I do 25 pages, so for a total of 50 pages. And so 21 of those, that's over 1,000 pages, not counting these books. So I'm really enjoying this glue book making. So this was my first large Victorian glue book. I do have, I think, 3 in this size. So that was the first one. This is the second one. Here we go. And this is the one I just finished. So we'll start the flip through of that one. So this is, I don't know, 40 or 50 years old. I don't know. So this is the first page, and I love birds, Victorian people, ephemera, butterflies, flowers, Victorian rooms, keys, just all kinds of vintage things. So here's a page. This was out of a magazine. It was some old paper doilies, like for Valentine's Day and stuff. And I added a phone, and this is scrapbook paper and a lady, and this was out of a book I got of line drawing, just drawings, and I cut it out and glued it onto this background paper. And here's a Victorian couch, sofa, whatever, fainting sofa. And this is a Boyd's Bear bunny. And this, I cut this out of the magazine. That's beautiful art. I don't go for a lot of nudity, but, you know, sometimes you just got to let it pass. It's just a beautiful art. It's beautiful. And I just filled it in with this and that. And I still have some Holly Hobby stuff left. Not a lot. I went from, like, I don't know, 10 calendars times 12, 120. And I've probably got 10 or so pictures left out of all of that. And I just feel so good that I don't have the calendar sitting around. I've got that beautiful art put in my books. So there's that. And this, I have several of these drawings now. These are from the Good Old Days magazine. There's some Victorian drawings and some like 40s, 50s, different eras. These are Boyd's Bears cut out of a catalog. And birds are timeless. I hope you can see that. But birds are timeless. They can be Victorian, they can be now. So that's a good thing about birds. You can use them almost anywhere. This is an old photograph out of the Good Old Days magazine. It's got so much character. And I even have the title, The Good Old Days. I had a couple of smaller Victorian calendars too, and all of them, almost all of them, are like collage pages. I didn't do this collage. It's just with all this stuff glued on there, not and photographed, and so it's smooth. But anyway, so, and this is a tag that I made. It's actually the front of a scrapbooking paper pad, and here's some samples of the paper, and I just really liked it, so I added a few little details, and it's a very cute tag. This is ephemera. This is out of a magazine, and I just love antiques and Victorian style pictures. Did I already do this book? No, maybe not. I hope this is the one I just finished. I think it is. Yeah, this was recent. Anyway, so this is an ad, reproduction ad out of the Good Old Days magazine, and there's a bird, and this is Tim Holtz, and a picture out of a magazine. I like landscaping, and there's a dog. That's timeless. Maybe he wouldn't have had this collar back then. It's modern, but we don't pay attention to details. Here's just some pictures out of a magazine, and a bird, and various things. Now I do have another calendar, and I've only got a couple of these left. Sue Wells, I believe, draws these beautiful Victorian houses, so I've used those on my pages. And I've got this I printed from Pinterest. This is a piece of scrapbook paper, stuff I printed, and ads out of Victorian magazines, not from a 1900, but from 1990s. It's even, some of them even have websites on them, so they're not, but they got Victorian elements on them. And I added this hat to her. Just had the hat, so I used it. This is a greeting card. This is a ephemera, a cutout that I just put some scrapbook paper behind. This I printed from Pinterest. Excuse me, kind of belched there. Here's a bird picture and a nest. Here's a castle. I got a big little booklet from the thrift shop, and it's pictures of this castle and the interior, and a lot of interesting pictures. It's kind of pre-Victorian, but right here, this is nowadays people in a old horse and carriage. And here's like an old Victorian map, and Victorian people, and scrapbook paper, just various things. It's kind of plain right here, but that's the sky in the picture. Here's this pretty lady. Yeah, I printed her like this with the music on the background. And a pretty bedroom. This is a Boyd's cat. Some flowers. This is some ephemera that I cut off of a piece of scrapbook paper. An old ad for curtains. This was off one of those calendar pages. I had a couple of these. I made another page a while back with that same picture. But it's an entirely new page now because it's got all different elements. I believe this is out of a magazine. This is a tag that I made. When I put tags in these books, it's okay to have some bumpy elements. This is a thick, what do you call it, not cardstock, but it's real thick cardboard. But I don't like to have a lot of thick stuff in my glue books. I don't mind them in my scrapbooks because I use page protectors, but I just worry about them damaging the other side or you know, falling off. But I feel pretty good about them being in the page protectors. So here's a pretty room and another Boyd's bear. This picture is at the Henry Dorley Zoo, or one like it, and this is my very favorite picture. Again, nudity, but it's a beautiful picture. Painting. This vase I cut out of a magazine. It's a lady on it. It's a really nice vase. An old house. That might have been from that castle book and the grounds. This is part of one of those Victorian calendars. You know, they're big, so I have to cut some off, and this is what I had left. And I try to use up these little scraps. I don't like to waste anything. This is graphic 45, and I had this little strip of something, and I put that on there. Another beautiful Victorian bedroom. And a lot of these Victorian bedrooms are from 1990s Victorian magazines, and they're reproduced Victorian. Victorian was really popular back in the 1990s. And I even was into it myself. I had a house built in 1900, and I like the antiques and everything Victorian style. Now this is one of those calendar pages, and from here up, this is all the calendar page, and I wish I could collage this well. I'm not that good at it, but this is very nice. So this is a calendar page, and I probably trimmed some off the side to make it fit. And then I just added some scrapbook paper here, and this compass, and this old car. This is from the Good Old Days magazine. Just some various things. Country something. I had a country magazine, and there were several pictures of like flea market stuff, and a lot of antiques and cool things. So I have a lot of pictures cut out of that, and I like them. It's a hobby horse, and surrounded by antiques. Looks like an outdoor, well, maybe it's indoor antique store, I don't know. And I've also found a book of antique dolls at a thrift shop, and I cut that up and put the dolls in here. This is a greeting card, I believe, pretty sure. This is something I cut out of a magazine. This is out of a magazine. Maybe a card, greeting card, that's what it is. I think this was a greeting card as well, and I cut it out a little bit. This is out of a magazine. This I printed and glued it onto some yellow paper for a little edge. More of the flea market stuff. I like Victorian gardens too, you know, landscaping and the scenery, and I made this kind of a little flea market type page right down here, and I added this, and this is just things I find. And I found a Victorian ladies book, and I cut that apart, and I've got a lot of nice Victorian. This is one of the nicest Victorian ladies pictures. This is some ephemera off of scrapbook paper, flea market stuff, more flea market stuff, a Victorian room, and just various things. And here's a porch. Victorian, sort of Victorian style porch. And here's a picture I printed from Pinterest. I believe that's also Sue Wells. There's more Victorian stuff, and birds, and this flower. Just filling up the pages. And here's another full page. Good Old Days, I think every issue they print a full page ad from. This is from a 1925, reprinted in the Good Old Days magazine. This I printed from Pinterest, bird out of a magazine. This is more flea market stuff. Just filling up the book with Victorian things. This is outdoors. Obviously it's a new picture, but it could have been around 100 years ago. And this is out of a book that I bought, and sometimes, like on a previous page, I cut those out and glue them onto, well, I can't find it, but you saw it a little bit ago. But sometimes I will cut this out and glue it onto a print background, you know, newsprint or something. Makes it more interesting, but this is good. And this is out of Good Old Days magazine. This is from the cover of that Victorian Lady magazine, and I even kept the word Victorian Lady on there. I cut that out This is some scrapbook paper, some newsprint, flea market kind of stuff. This is a room with like flea market stuff in it. Some vintage dishes. This is like a flea market stuff, a lot of cool chairs. It looks like they're gonna have a fancy wedding or something there. This is out of a magazine. This is out of Good Old Days. This is probably out of Birds and Blooms. I find those at the thrift stores with flowers and birds. This is a room from a magazine. This is Graphic 45. This is from scrapbook paper. Just some hearts I added onto a scrap of paper. This is some old hats. I printed that from Pinterest. And you can print, if you know how to use your printer, various sizes. You can print this 8.5 by 11. Or larger if it'll still come out clear if you've got the special kind of printer. Or I like to do 4 on a page for about this size, or sometimes 9 on a page for a smaller size. Like this would be the 9 on a page size. This is a greeting card, Boyd's Bears. I just love that. This was the back of a cutouts package. All these things were cut out and in a package to use on your scrapbook pages or whatever. And I just liked this, so I saved it, and I've had it a while, and I finally put it on something, and hey, I put it to good use. This is scrapbook paper with some old telephones. This is a Victorian stove. Here is a very pretty room with like flea market type stuff in it. Very, very shabby chic. This whole orange section, I did not glue this stuff on here. This came like this. And here's a dog. He looks a little bit modern, but he's fine. A room with a chandelier and roses, and here's an ad and a tag that I made. This I printed. I added the word beauty, and I glued it onto some pink background paper and did some ink on it. I really enjoy making tags. I got so many, it's just crazy, but I don't care. This is out of a Birds and Blooms magazine, probably. Some sheet music. This might be a greeting card. This is out of Good Old Days magazine. This is from a greeting card envelope. And I got a book of vintage style cats, and that's a nice picture. Printed this from Pinterest. A dog from an ad. This is a pretty room. Retreat to the attic. I left the words on there. That looks nice. Just various things. This might have been a greeting card, I think. This is from scrapbook paper. I added a couple of ladybugs. These I cut out of a magazine. This is Tim Holtz. This is from scrapbook paper. This is Boyd's Bears. I cut out this flower and put it onto this scrapbook paper. This is out of that doll book. The flowers, various things, a bird, probably from Birds and Bloom, scrapbook paper, an old ad. Another Holly Hobby. And here they are. He's got a paper boat, and so I found this picture of a toy boat, and I put them together, and I think it looks really nice. This is a piece of wallpaper border, and I glued that on there and added this picture of a doll, and I had this frame. I put that on there. A Boyd's Bear. I printed this from Pinterest. This is a tag I made. This is actually a scrap out of one of the calendars, and I cut it into a tag shape and put a different colored background on it. Here's a pretty room. This was on Graphic 45. Add a little color to your world. This is a picture of some roses. Artist Muse's roses. I love roses. This is a tag from some scrapbooking supplies. These are Boyd's bunnies on some scrapbook paper. This is a ephemera. This is I printed from Pinterest. Here's a pretty bedroom and birds, and then I added this lace that came with some scrapbooking supplies. This is graphic 45. This was something I picked up at a thrift shop. I just gathered up some stuff that I could use on my pages, just various things. This is out of the doll magazine, the doll catalog. Flowers, scrapbook paper. This was it was called chipboard. That's what it is, that real thick cardstock chipboard. And I peeled this off so it's not so thick. I peeled it off and threw away the back. Here's some very pretty roses and a beautiful vase. Just some pretty things. I printed this from Pinterest. This might have been a greeting card. Here's a pretty room out of a magazine. And this is out of a magazine and flea market stuff. And this is scrapbook paper. Here's a pretty room, and I added these two girls, these two Tim Holtz girls. Flowers, various things. This I print is out of a magazine. This is from scrapbook paper. This might be from that castle book. It's just a pretty picture of a door outside. This is a bird I cut out and put on some music paper. This is scrapbook paper. This is graphic 45. I added a car and this picture and a bird. I think there's 30 pages in this book, so a total of 60. This is from Boyd's Bear catalog, and I just cut out most of the picture and more of that wallpaper border, and then a tag that I had printed and cut out, or maybe somebody gave it to me and maybe I didn't print it. A bird, a cat. Here's a very pretty pink bedroom. So I had made it kind of girly. Here's some scrapbook paper and a pink bird cage, a little ballerina figurine, some teddy bears, very vintage teddy bears, scrapbook paper with a girl on it, and this is scrapbook paper. Sometimes things don't stick really well. So this I printed from Pinterest. This is a bird out of a magazine that I put on some scrapbook paper. This is scrapbook paper. This dog I put on some map scrapbook paper. Flea market kind of stuff outside. And here's another pretty room. That's so pretty. It's just beautiful. The scrapbook paper that I decorated a little bit. Just various things. This is a postcard. This I cut out of a magazine and put it on this music paper and added a few things to it. This is an outdoor picture of a bench and some flowers and a basket, and then I added these two dragonflies. This I cut out of an ad. It's two, this might be Boyd's. I think it is Boyd's. It's two mice having a little tea party. Nature's Playground. This is graphic 45 and some other things. This is out of that Victorian Ladies magazine. This, I believe, was out of Good Old Days. I just really liked it. I cut it out, just as you see my fingers going. And I added some flowers and some flea market kind of stuff. And this swirly. But this is all one piece right here. I cut it out just like that. This picture out of Good Old Days magazine. Picture of an outdoor garden, a bird in a bird bath, butterfly, scrapbook paper. This is scrapbook paper. This is pretty scrapbook paper with birds on it. Another Victorian Ladies, and this was in the fold of the book, but I don't care. And this, you know, they're having a fancy dinner, so I had this fancy dishes with the silverware, and I thought that's really nice. So these two things just filled up the page, and I thought, well, it really doesn't need much else. And this is a whole calendar page with some trimmed off somewhere. So I just added this stuff across the top. And I'm going to stand up and look through my calendar, make sure you can see that. Oh yeah, you can see that. Okay. So then this I liked. This was this is sort of like a maid. She's wearing her apron, a maid going to the grocery store. And so here's some more maids from good old days. So I thought that looks good together. And this is a tag I made with birds and Boyd's bears. And this is scrapbook paper and just a bird and various things. This is flowered printed scrapbook paper. Here's a very pretty front porch. And a Victorian lady from Pinterest, an old ad. This is from Good Old Days magazine. Yeah, probably 5 years down the road, I won't remember where I got all this stuff. This is probably from Birds and Blooms. Okay, here's another pretty room, kind of flea market style. Rusty things, worn out things. Flea market, shabby chic. It's very pretty though. This is from Pinterest. This is from a magazine. Just various things I've collected. This is a greeting card. I don't know how Victorian it is, but it looks fine to me. And this is something some scrapbook paper with a bird cut out, and I added a few things. A cat from that Victorian cat book. Some ephemera. This is from Good Old Days. I just love these old photos. Don't know who they are, but I do. This is from the Victorian Lady book. This is a tag that I made. It's got some buttons on it. This is a landscape out of a magazine. And I added this sticker of a deer. I just thought that would be nice. And a butterfly. And another calendar page. This is all just a calendar page. And I added this pretty paper here and this tag. And I don't think it really needs anything else. It's, unless I added something here. Again, out of the Victorian Lady book. I glued this butterfly and flower onto a book page. Boyd bear and some flowers I glued onto this thing that I've had around for a while. And just some pretty scraps right there. Excuse me. Here's like a pretty sunroom. And I just like it. This is out of Good Old Days magazine, probably Birds in Bloom. I glued it onto this scrapbook paper with postage on it. Flowers, just using up stuff. I got plenty more where that came from. This is from that Castle magazine, and it was Biltmore House. That's what it is. And there's a map of the floor. And then a pretty bedroom. And I added a dog. And this is from a magazine, I think. This is a pretty Victorian style corner bathroom sink. Just added key and various things. And the last page, I really liked this bakery sign. It's on a magazine page. It's part of a room. So I added a picture of a cake with Victorian dishes and stuff. And I didn't have I don't know what that is, carrot cake, but I didn't have a carrot cake recipe, but I got a pumpkin nut bread recipe. This is out of the Holly Hobby magazine or calendar. So I just added a recipe. I got this ad for a tea room and a teacup, and I added the silverware to eat the cake and some cups. And this is a tea bag cover that I soaked in tea. And this is a Boyd's bunny. So that's my book. I don't know why it's been so long since I made a video, but I need to work on that. Your life just gets busy, but maybe I'll find time. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.